Welcome back, guys. This is episode 2 of the Introduction to Progressive Metal. Last episode I talked way too long in the intro, and this time I'm just going to say, if you want to know what the heck is going on and why I'm listing out bands, go to indevstudios.com, get the full PDF of my flowchart, and go watch episode 1. So, the first episode was about Opeth, and no, it wasn't old Peth, it was new Peth. I'm sorry, I know, stop yelling, please. So that whole category was more classic sounding, has traditional instruments like organs and flutes and such, and features a little more dark, sinister music like Tool and Leprous. And I know in the first episode I was like, hey, see you guys next week, and now it's 3 months later. But these videos are really hard to edit and take a lot of time, a lot more time than I expected. So, sorry about that. So, as we move into the second category, this one barely treads the progressive metal waters, but I had to include this whole family just because how important it is to the rest. This is where our genre garners the most viewership, in my opinion, from casual music listeners, or people who just don't like metal in general. Depending on where a person is with their music taste, this category is probably the safest bet to someone's first listens into the genre, and then transition them into the harder stuff later. Coheed and Cambria, especially, has done so much for the traditional album with their vast storytelling and catchy songs. This side of prog metal is more poppy and a bit more influenced by punk, just a little bit. More the punk rock kind of sounds, not actual punk. A lot of their songs have very simple structures. They move from verse, chorus, kind of like the music that you would hear on the radio. Which is why I think they're the most accessible of every band so far. But if you want to get weirder, the first subcategory is the Mars Volta. Now, most of you definitely know this band and probably listen to them often, but I think they're a good natural progression forward from Coheed while still throwing in a lot of avant-garde elements that most people won't be used to. From there, we have two bands that I think have the quirkiness of the Mars Volta, but still retain the catchiness of Coheed. The first being Closure in Moscow. Pink Lemonade was an extremely popular album the year that it came out, and you're doing yourself a disservice by not listening to it, especially if you like kind of weirder, snappy prog rock that will slap you in the face. Similarly, we have Good Tiger, who has similar tones and grooves. I only have one subcategory for Good Tiger, and it's Ollie Steele, who is actually a guitarist from Monuments. Most of his stuff is instrumental. He only has one song that has vocals. So that means I kind of cheated on this one, but I hope you guys will let that slide.
Could just kill all of these things you've been thinking for the reason you're tired of. 'Cause I've been here 1,000 times, searched every gate.
Next is Hail the Sun, which has a lot of standard structures, nothing too proggy, but has some catchy choruses and some really fun lyrics. The first child is a band called Crazy 88, who has some very Hail the Sun-esque moments, but a little bit heavier instrumentation. And since we're on the headbanging side of things, let's continue a bit with He Is Legend. The third child here is a somewhat older group called At the Drive-In, who's been around for a while and brings the edginess that we all crave. The Fall of Troy is a group widely known for their math rock roots and actually being under the genre of screamo, which screamo isn't just things that have screaming in them, in case you didn't know that. And if you like this extreme heaviness and insanity, you might like a band called The Number 12 Looks Like You. The next band is one I found while making this flowchart. Honestly, I'm probably going to be listening to them for a while. A band called Secret Band. While we're going heavy, it's time to go heavy with a band called Heavy Heavy Low Low. That's sort of a throwback to the early 2000s. And if you like that kind of wild, passionate core music, then maybe Duck Duck Goose is a good fit for you. And lastly, a wild card called Giraffe Tongue Orchestra, who has a bunch of members of other prog groups all slapped together in a weird combination that somehow works. So, going all the way back up to the top, the second child of the Mars Volta is Circa Survive, a band who I wouldn't really call prog. As I said before, we're really like towing the line here of progressive music. But honestly, this is a category that I think you should check out if you love these soft, higher pitched vocals and standard, catchier melodies. They're honestly just a lot of fun. And 3 bands under this category are Tides of Man,
I know you know, despite your eyes of me, you were merely trying something new. Dissolve myself in you, 'cause I'm not gonna.
Tides of Man has one child called A Lot Like Birds, a band that everyone watching should definitely go listen to because they make some really beautiful music.
I wish that time would stop for me, just this once. Can I turn back? Is it too late? Is there some place? Why me? No matter what the weather's like, you follow me. Well, no matter what I do, you'll take it honestly.
Then we have another bird band called Bird Problems. In a similar vein is a band from Australia called Dead Letter Circus.
Something's not right. We're living in circles. It goes and it goes and it goes, and it's never the same. One day at a time, and oh, this is all a game I choose to play.
And now let's move on to something a little bit different, a band called Thank You Scientist that made a big splash with their album Maps of Non-Existent Places in 2014. If you took the Coheed style vocals and mixed them with jazz rock and saxophones and grooviness, you'd get this band.
So let's not discuss this. Get me out of here. I never fix it, I know. Looks like you finally made it. How I've anticipated your return to planet Earth.
And if you like this more orchestral and jazzy instrumentation, then I'd suggest a weirder band called Diablo Swing Orchestra, who makes some big band style songs, mixed with metal riffs, some great melodies, and features both male and female vocals. And then if you like the more jazzy stuff, you can also try Bent Knee, who isn't really metal, and I probably shouldn't be including here, but if you like prog, then you'll eventually be listening to Bent Knee, and that's just the way life goes.
Oh, nothing charges me like the night. It's like good God was born to write. Hey, of my Holy Ghost. I'm drinking in the laptop light. And when I bleed, oh, I take control.
So let's go on back up to Coheed. There's a band I found who feels like a little more off-the-wall Coheed with a touch of Leprous perhaps, called In the Presence of Wolves. They deserve a lot more attention with longer songs and a little bit darker sounding, but all in all just a great addition to any of your playlists.
I told you that all of the stars in the sky couldn't replace your eyes. While maybe the last time we spoke, you could reply. And I believe you if it takes the pain. And if I ever dream again.
Wolves has 3 children, and speaking of 3, this band is literally called 3. This was kind of a weird placement in this category because 3 has a lot of instrumentation that can lead towards the more like epic and symphonic metal. And so I didn't know whether to include them here, but I feel that if you like Coheed and you like In the Presence of Wolves, this is a more natural progression if you want the more progressive elements. And if you like that, then wait it out for our 4th episode because you'll definitely enjoy that.
Lights above, over the ground. And I shouted, and now, baby, the light you can't deny that best of all the joke was on.
and then back to a more traditional rock sound with Fair to Midland. And then we have a band I love called ORBS. That is a very weird journey into progressive rock and Adam Fisher's distinctive voice. And if you like his voice, why not try out some of his other projects, one being Fear Before the March of Flames. And then his solo project, All Human. Also, Dr. Manhattan is a good hidden gem for those who like post-punk emotional rock music.
Your doorbell's just as muffled, but the walkway that we shoveled. You left me, now I'm at home where you left me far. Home sweet home, that's home alone.
Fear Before has a single child called Genghis Tron, who can be a little more sludgy. So if you like that kind of stuff, look out for another episode in the future. But I included them in this category because they have similar vocal styles to the other bands I've mentioned, and also like to experiment with electronic elements, which can be fun. Moving on to a band you've probably heard of that has been one of the more famous prog bands in the past few years, Protest the Hero is no stranger to the punk side of things, but usually creates a dizzying array of complicated guitar riffs to go along with the shorter songs, lyrics that critique society, or further back in their discography, you can find more medieval lyric themes. If you like this style of music paired with almost exact Coheed vocals, I'd suggest you check out Mandroid Echo Star. If you like female vocals and this kind of epic, grandiose music, I'd suggest maybe trying out Unleash the Archers. There's also a lesser-known band that hasn't made an album in over 8 years, but I like their more classical and kind of eclectic style, Art by Numbers. last band here in this episode can be a little jinty, but I didn't put them in that episode because I feel that they fit a lot better here. They felt like a breath of fresh air for the whole genre, and I'm interested to see what else they can bring. It's a band called Aviations.
Life worth living.
And that's it for this episode. If you made it this far, then honestly, I'm impressed. This is actually one of the shorter episodes, surprisingly. But if you have any other suggestions for some of the bands that I mentioned in here, or some new bands, go ahead and leave them down in the comments. I love reading the comments from you guys. Make sure to check out the full flow chart, indevstudios.com. You already know where to go. Or you can just wait for me to edit all the videos in the next 8 years. That's your choice.